When I thought about this presentation today and the digital economy and digital transformation, and yes, that is ambiguous, but at the same time, so much of it, of what's going on today, is fueled by applications. And so I really wanted to focus on going from digital economy, digital transformation, to what are some of the implications for security. So there's really, let's see if I can get to the right slide here, user error. In our short time together, there's three key things that to me are the takeaways or points that I'm trying to get across, and I'm going to telegraph them for you right up front. Number one, that the attack surface that's getting created by all of these applications and IoT and so on, that the attack surface is growing in a nonlinear way. Point number two, as a result, the traditional approaches that this industry's taken, we as vendors, you as customers, of incrementing forward, adding another tool, adding a few more people, adding a little more budget, it won't work. You have a nonlinear problem, and we're approaching the solutions in a linear way, increment forward way. That's not going to work. Which leads to the third point that I hope you take away today, is that we really need to rethink fundamentally our security architecture in this new world. And it's our belief as F5 that we start to reorient security from an application point of view. So, applications. You heard from Vishal and from Cyrus about the digital economy and the opportunities, the innovation, the disruption, frankly, some of the business risk associated with that. So much of it, not all of it, but so much of it is fueled by applications. It's how we consume our media today. It's how we pay for goods and services and conduct financial business, particularly in Asia, which leads the world in the adoption of fintech and applications around banking in particular. Applications have found their way into our cars, right? So, and combined with IoT, leading to the connected car and soon the autonomous self-driving car. Let's see, let me get the TechCrunch. The digital economy news site recently said something that I think is really astute. It basically said Uber, the world's largest transportation company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media site, creates no content. Alibaba, the most valuable retail site, owns no inventory. And the final one, Airbnb, the largest accommodation provider in the world, owns no real estate. Something interesting is going on. That was TechCrunch. So given the power of applications to fuel innovation, to disrupt industries, we shouldn't be surprised by the rapid growth from a quantity perspective and from a sophistication and complexity and innovation perspective. So applications are great, right? They're great, but there's always a but. In this case, the apps are increasing in quantity. They're moving to different places, different clouds around the globe. The data behind them is probably growing even faster than the applications itself. IoT has a lot to do with that. So there's the attack surface, which is point number one, is growing at a nonlinear rate. The number, the location, that enough is enough to really fuel the attack surface growth. Add to that complexity. The complexity in today's apps almost guarantee vulnerabilities. It is common still today for CGI scripts from the 90s to be combined with complex AJAX web applications using third-party APIs and web services in the cloud. Common. And that complexity is before we even get to open source, which is pervasive in today's applications, more vulnerabilities introduced via open source, and before we even start talking about microservices, nanosegmentation, APIs have already been mentioned, right? There's an explosion in APIs today. So the complexity of the apps, and then the data behind them, right? That is ultimately growing even faster than the applications. And when you add IoT to the mix and the data associated with IoT, then we add an order of magnitude to that. Speaking of IoT, that increases data volumes. It increases devices that are connected, this whole concept of hyperconnectivity. It increases vulnerabilities as a result of all of that. So the challenge with IoT, there's lots of opportunities, and you heard about those earlier. Some of the challenges and risks with IoT is not only the attack surface growing, but maybe more importantly, the implications of a successful attack. Just last week, there were details announced about malware called Crash Override. Crash Override is the second ever malware discovered that was purpose-built to destroy physical systems. The first goes back to 2010 in Stuxnet, right? Malware that was targeted at Iran's nuclear enrichment capabilities and specifically their centrifuges. This is the second ever. Very sophisticated. The reports I've read are there's no indications that any elements of it have been seen before. It looks like it was built from the ground up, specifically for cyber destruction. In fact, it was used in December and created an electrical grid outage in the Ukraine around Kiev. And it appears that that was just a trial run. In our language, right, just a POC to test it and to refine it. This crash override malware is a threat to all of our electrical grids. So the implications when the virtual world meets the physical world creates lots of opportunities, but further increases our risk and our attack surface. So that's the attack surface side of things, but the threat landscape is actually evolving almost as rapidly. So today, the bad actors, they're innovative. I just talked about, and when I say innovative, I mean that in a bad way, but they are innovating, right? Crash override is innovative. They're organized. They have well-functioning markets by which to both distribute and acquire hacking IP. Not only are they innovative, but maybe just as concerning, maybe more concerning, is they've recently stolen very sophisticated hacking IP from government agencies. WikiLeaks Vault 7 is reportedly the leak of the hacking IP of the US FBI. More recently, shadow brokers, a group called Shadow Brokers, released IP that in this case was reportedly stolen from the US National Security Agency. Well-funded agencies also innovating, if you will, very sophisticated stuff that has fallen into the hands of bad actors. In fact, the reported NSA leak from shadow brokers, one of the exploits there was the backbone of last month's widely reported WannaCry ransomware attacks, and also a less widely reported cryptocurrency mining botnet called Adelkuz. Right? So those got used and put to work very, very quickly. I mentioned botnets. Botnets have gotten massive. Right? So going back to last October, we saw a terabit scale attack, terabit scale, on Dyn that brought down websites like Twitter and Netflix and the New York Times. It obviously had impacts here as well. What are they doing? They're conscripting bots. Going back to kind of how IoT intersects with all of this, Mirai conscripted all kinds of IoT devices, right? DVRs, cameras, and so on, and used them to launch massive attacks. The bad guys are also using encryption to their advantage, right? This encrypted traffic was put in place to protect privacy, and it does a pretty good job of that. but it also provides privacy and protection for the bad guys. They're hiding their attacks, they're hiding malware, they're hiding data being exfiltrated out. So that's another challenge. And speaking of bots then, they're being used to launch automated attacks on our web applications. They're being very, very effective at doing that. So let's use WannaCry as an example here to kind of bring this all together. It started out as what's reported to be an insider leak at the NSA. Shadow brokers dumped this IP, and a threat actor got their hands on it. And in fact, just in the last week, I won't mention it, but you'll see reports out there that are starting to attribute that attack. That attack used a weaponized exploit called Eternal Blue. The impact ultimately was hundreds of thousands of computers, many of them healthcare institutions, across 150 countries. So, and that was the WannaCry. They used traditional delivery, didn't really use botnets in that case. But the less reported one, Adelkuz, which was that cryptocurrency mining botnet, that was a botnet, and that did use automated techniques. In fact, in that one, this was tested by, I don't remember the security firm now, but they did tests on this. If you took a vulnerable, unpatched system and you exposed it to the internet, it was compromised in less than 20 minutes. Proven multiple times. That's how effective these automated attacks are. Intentionally expose a vulnerable system, it was discovered and compromised in 20 minutes. So clearly the threat landscape is changing. So let's checkpoint for a minute. The attack surface is growing in a nonlinear way. The threat actors have very sophisticated IP, both developed by themselves as well as stolen, and they're using machines to attack us. Are we really surprised by the frequency and scale of breaches? Can we really expect to be successful against this, with this landscape, with the current approaches, the current resources we have at our disposal? Let's dig a little deeper why our existing approaches are failing us. So we've got this huge application attack surface problem, and across it, we don't have the necessary visibility and application awareness. That's a result of the history of this industry going back to the early 90s. Right? Your first threats, viruses, and we created antiviruses, and then spam, and then anti-spam, and you know the whole cycle. But the way this industry has evolved for 25 years with point problems and then point solutions makes it very difficult to get visibility across the ecosystem and application awareness. That leads to the second problem. Therefore, we don't have the appropriate end-to-end context and behavioral insight, which makes it difficult to assess truly the risk and what we should be doing about it. Also, because of the way the industry has evolved, we lack integration today across security solutions. Bolting on new point solutions as new problems arose, that made sense historically, but it precludes integration. And to counteract these automated threats, these botnets, these stealthy threats, my belief is that our future, our collective future, has to include automation based on machine learning, based on behavioral analytics, but it's also going to require practical integration. You can't get there without that. And finally, in this multi-cloud world that we live in today, we lack the ability to easily drive consistent policies across multiple environments. Using point security products across different cloud deployments, whether they're public or private, makes it very difficult to both develop and deploy consistent security policies. Not to mention, it adds significant operational complexity and cost as well. So as mentioned earlier, the security industry cannot continue this historical approach of incrementing forward. We've got we can't just keep adding another tool, a few more people, a little more budget. The application transformation is outstripping our current capabilities to adapt. We continue to spend a lot of money, most of our spend, in fact, on endpoint and network-oriented technologies. So the paradigm needs to shift. Fundamentally believe that. Applications are an increasing risk, and applications are the gateway to your data. That is fundamental to how F5 thinks about the industry and thinks about security. Applications are vital. They're the basis for so much of this innovation, but they're also vulnerable. The bad actors know that. In fact, the network perimeter has vanished. That's not new information. We know that, yet have we really changed how we secure our environments? The network perimeter has vanished. The application itself, because it is the gateway to the data, it's your last frontier. It's your last defense. And as a result, really the application itself is the new perimeter. When you think about the application being the new perimeter, then it's helpful to think about security through the lens of the application. Looking back from the application across the network to the user and the device allows you to see security a little bit differently. First, you can define risk based on the value of the application and the value of the data behind it. Based on that risk, you can set policies appropriate. Number three, you can therefore not only define the policies, but deploy them effectively across a multi-cloud environment. You can identify who, and more, what is accessing your applications. And you can detect anomalous or risky behavior. A reorientation towards protecting the application as the new perimeter, requires three things. The foundation is visibility, context, and control. We'll talk a little bit about each of these in the following slides, but simply put, by visibility, I just mean an unobstructed view. That's what visibility means, unobstructed view to all your application traffic end to end. It's the starting point. That 360 view needs to provide a 360-degree view that provides context and a baseline of behavior, and therefore you can determine what's anomalous. And finally, the real goal, ultimately, at the end of all of this, is more effective security controls. The first challenge in gaining visibility is encryption. It varies depending on where you are, but basically 70% of internet traffic is encrypted today. So it certainly improves privacy, but it does hide malicious behavior. And the challenge for our current security environments is many of our existing security devices, they can't see into the encrypted traffic. So we definitely need to regain visibility into the traffic. Second, then, that visibility needs to be end-to-end, right? From the app, through the network, back to the user and the device. We're looking to gain full application context. Then, security is a team sport. Not F5, not your favorite next-gen firewall provider. Not one vendor is going to be able to do all of this for you. It's a team sport. We can't be successful unless we have visibility and integration across vendors. And that will ultimately support, in the future, automation and orchestration. In other words, we're not just looking to regain visibility. That's a starting point, but we actually want to take that visibility and ultimately have that lead to more effective orchestration across current and future devices. End-to-end visibility, then, is ultimately a means to getting deeper context around the user, around the network, around the application, around the underlying cloud infrastructure, and so on. We're trying to get granular context about what's going on. We want to know things like who the user is, where they are, what device they're using, the OS of the device, the health of the device, health of the application, software elements in the application, versions. You get it, right? Capacity underneath the application, the network connection. All that context is vital. It allows you to see deeply what's going on, define risk, apply controls accordingly. So speaking of control then, that is ultimately what we're trying to get here, right? This visibility end-to-end, this richer context is all about better security, more effective security, starting with authentication and access, making sure that this context allows you to make decisions like, should I allow, should I deny, or based on all of that, should I require some kind of step-up authentication. Availability. The app's got to be available to the user. That's been the requirement since the beginning of IT. That age-old requirement's not going away, and in fact, it's more difficult than ever to deliver that availability with the scale of attacks we're seeing. I mentioned that terabit scale attack that Dyn experienced last October. The applications themselves, because they're dynamic, because they're complex, they're bound to be vulnerable, right? So we need controls that protect the application, layers 3 through 7. I call out bot protection separately here because it's really important from the standpoint of it's increasing the scale and the effectiveness of the threat actors. So the bots are threatening the availability of the applications, and they're also being used to attack the applications themselves. And finally, I mentioned automation and orchestration. The bad guys are using machines. I don't know how we are successful as an industry unless we learn to fight machines with machines. Fighting machines with a few more people, more budget, orders of magnitudes more alerts. I don't see how we get there from here. So ultimately, we've got to have automation and orchestration. In summary, in this application-driven world, we need to reorient security around the application. It is the last line of defense. It's the new perimeter. And we've walked through the requirements to actually do that very quickly. Visibility, context, and control. You really have the opportunity here. I mean, what I just described, if we do all that, it's really kind of nirvana, right? We've got applications that are only being accessed by good, authorized users. The applications are available, they're protected. You've got appropriate bot defenses in place. You've got a security system, right, that responds in a risk-based, automated way. The industry's not delivering that yet, but that's where we need to move. And F5 can be a key partner on the journey to getting there with key capabilities available today. So let's talk a little bit about F5, what we do and how we do it. So the first thing is how. Let's talk a little bit about how, because I think that's important. F5 is a high-performance, full proxy that sits between your user and your application. Now that's as technical as I'm going to get here on stage today. But it's really important. I say that because that is foundational to why we can do what we do. Because we sit in the middle as a high-performance full proxy, we get complete context of what's going on. Essentially, to the user, we're the application. To the application, we're the user. We sit in the middle and we see it all, full context. That's how we do what we do. Basically, that is our security services platform. Now, on top of that platform, we provide a variety of capabilities, starting with application access, making it easier for your users and more secure for all of you to get access to applications in the cloud, SaaS applications, public cloud, as well as your own private data centers and private clouds. And so we do that with a range of capabilities that spans federating identity, single sign-on, and granular access control. On the other side of the string, if you will, of the connection, we got the applications. And we've got world-class, the most widely deployed web application firewall in the marketplace. We have capabilities, advanced capabilities around botnet protection as well as web fraud protection. And also anti-DDoS capabilities, hybrid capabilities that combine the best of both worlds, the ability to protect and mitigate on site, but then also use cloud services for volumetric scrubbing. Now, this is a good point to talk about the fact that we offer a variety of ways to consume and use our capabilities. And I'll use Web Application Firewall as an example. Of course, we deliver that in a high-performance appliance. We've done that for many, many years. We also deliver it in a software virtual edition that you can deploy in your private clouds or in public cloud infrastructure. Speaking of public clouds, you can get our WAF capabilities right from within the Microsoft Azure Marketplace and the Amazon AWS Marketplace. And there's a fourth way. We actually have our own cloud service called Silverline, whereby we deliver capabilities. So for example, the Web Application Firewall sits in our cloud, and we manage the policies for you. The only point being, there's a variety of ways to use F5 across this multi-cloud world. And then I talked about SSL visibility, right? Regaining visibility to all this encrypted traffic. So F5 provides high-speed decryption and dynamic service chaining across your existing security devices. It could be your next-gen firewalls, which we complement very, very well, your FireEye APT devices, your DLP sensors, your IDSs, all of that, right? A central point for high-speed decryption and service chaining. And with the end-to-end visibility and the rich context you get from us, as you would expect, we build on top of that with behavioral capabilities, machine learning capabilities. So for example, we can automatically, based on granular traffic analysis, set DDoS thresholds for mitigation, to trigger mitigation. So all up, to summarize on F5, we are an application-centric security platform, first and foremost. A security platform to protect your applications, the access to those applications, and visibility in between. On top of that platform, we provide a range of capabilities, of which I talked about most of them on the previous slide very briefly. There's a couple here I want to call out specifically. Just so you're aware and to indicate our march forward with all of you. So in January, we launched these new products. And in fact, we launched a new brand. F5 launched a security brand called Herculon. And underneath that brand, two specific products. Herculon DDoS Hybrid Defender and Herculon SSL Orchestrator. DDoS Hybrid Defender is a hybrid solution that provides on-premise detection and mitigation. And it combines a cloud element to handle the highest volume cloud scrubbing. And then Herculon SSL Orchestrator is this high-speed decryption and dynamic service chaining capability I've been talking about. And finally, F5 fits into your existing ecosystem. And that's important for two reasons. Number one, to provide visibility back to your existing devices so you can get the appropriate return on investment, and it actually improves security effectiveness. But it's also the way we play our part in moving the industry and our customers forward towards a future of automation and orchestration. So, let's wrap up. Applications are foundational to the digital economy today, to this business transformation that's going on. And I started out this session with 3 implications for security that I hope you took away. Number one, that the attack surface is increasing at a nonlinear rate, further exacerbated by things like IoT. Number two, therefore it's crazy to think that we can be successful protecting our assets and our reputation by incrementing forward, bolting on more technology. Instead, point number 3, I suggested that we should rethink our approach and start to reorient around the application, knowing that it is the last line of defense. It's ultimately the new perimeter. And I hope you also saw in this process that F5 can be a key partner with you on this journey. I hope you'll spend a little bit of time over in the showcase area. You'll see demonstrations of these SSL orchestration capabilities, federation to Office 365, for the DDoS protection I talked about, as well as web fraud protection. And with that, I want to once again say thank you. I hope you have a great, productive, and enjoyable conference.